You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Amazing Race After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Amazing Race After Show.
Good evening, everyone. You are tuning into AfterBuzzTV.com, the Amazing Race After Show for Season 24, All Stars, Episode 4, Smarter, Not Harder. I'm your host, James Wallington, and with me tonight is the lovely...
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. And I'm Jessica Carroll.
That's right. Happy St. Patrick's Day, indeed, and I'm Justin Nicols.
And I'm glad we survived today's serious earthquake this morning.
Oh.
We've already nicknamed it the Shamrock Shake.
The Shamrock
Now, as
Shake.
many of you guys
Shake.
probably saw already on social media, there was the newscaster on Channel 5 out here in Los Angeles where he immediately ducked under the table. We promise you tonight, if there is an earthquake, I'm talking to Marissa, our producer, right now. If there's an earthquake, we will keep going here on
Keep
AfterBuzz
rolling.
TV. We will keep
I'll
rolling
keep
until the
going.
lights fall down on our table. We promise you we are sticking with you guys. So thank you for sticking with us and tuning in.
Yes, thank
I
you.
actually thought that video was staged, like set up.
It was just too perfect.
Yeah.
Too
He was
perfect.
like, oh, and I believe that there's an earthquake going on while he's underneath the table
Well,
already.
It was almost. I love how we're recapping the video clip and not the show that we're here to talk about. But I like if you guys watch this clip, the news reporter, the male host, he like, put his finger up in the air like that was the detector.
Excuse me.
I feel it in the air coming. Yes, there is an earthquake coming. Hit the deck.
So like Justin said, if there is a potential earthquake this evening, we will still keep rolling.
We're in the bunker.
Let's dive right into Episode 4.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
So they start off in Malaysia still. They had to make their way, as the route marker said, to the Prince Philip Park, and they were given $98 for this leg of the race. I always wonder, like, where does that money go besides taxis? Like, do they ever stop for food?
They must. They have to eat.
Yeah, but like, I would be so into the race that I'd be so nervous to even stop for 5 minutes. Like, even if there's not even a line, like at a local McDonald's.
Well, maybe like, okay, when they're at the airport waiting for their flight, they'll get something to eat or...
And I'm trying to remember because I feel like we talked to one of the racers last season, or I did when we were, maybe at an event with them, and I asked this question, and I believe it's one of those where everyone gets a set timeout. Where it was like, okay, everyone gets a 30-minute break at this point, like keep it fair. There was some timeout for the food or something where it was like, don't quote me, it was something along that. I was surprised to know that they actually had time and food arranged and ready to go. I mean, they were taken care of.
especially at airports, right? There's so much downtime.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like, how do you budget that on top of... I'd be afraid to eat because it's like, what if you are in a car that breaks down, you need to use that money for something, but $98 doesn't
Some
seem
of
like
us
a
think
lot.
that food is very important.
Let's just ask Tim from last season. I mean, I'm sure he's listening. He's always very
Tweet us,
dedicated.
let us
Tim,
know.
what the hell happened? How do you guys eat on the race?
Where do you spend your bucks?
Yeah, all $98 for the whole leg.
Yes. As always, though, before they even go on to... the next part of the race, you kind of get a little bit of backstory on some of the teams. So before they headed to the roadblock, we first talked about Margie and Luke, and they kind of touched on their relationship as mother-son. And as Margie said, their advantage in this race is their relationship.
Yeah.
And we've kind of discussed this. I think being a family bond in a relationship in this race, like when Rebecca was on our after show,
Yeah.
she even said it's like you just have to kind of shut up and put up. So what do you think about their relationship and how they're doing?
I think that Margie is a phenomenal mother. She just is her patience for Luke, because his emotion can sometimes take over a little bit. So I think the way that Margie handles that is phenomenal. But I think that overall, I mean,
Say it. I feel like you're holding back.
like, okay, being a mother and a son, I think he has like more power over her. But he's like, okay, Mom, I'm not really gonna listen to you, like whatever, like a kid does.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I actually think I agree with you. You can see how close they are, and I definitely think there is a true bond there. And you're right. I think that if there's like the Mom of the Year award, I feel like it goes to her.
For
And there was a
sure.
great example in this episode. I know we'll get to it later, when the glasses fell, or we should maybe say thrown down.
Yeah.
And I really like that she took a time out from the challenge and she goes, pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like he was a 5-year-old. Like she is a good mother, and they're good to each other. However, I do find that I feel like the stress those two have when they're racing together has proven to be an issue multiple times.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's because it's continually shown this season. Even though I think they have a good bond, I think that whatever stresses they have, I think it's just going to get worse and worse. You know, and it seems to be holding them back in the race because they are having communication issues.
Well, the one thing too is because she's a mom and it's her son, she's going to put up with anything he really does and keep supporting him and keep driving. Whereas if it's a couple or like two friends, you'd be like, kind of get mad, like, God damn it, like, put yourself, get yourself up.
Yeah.
Whereas she's the mom, so she's like, it's okay, honey, we're gonna like keep going. She's more comforting to him.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that they can use to their advantage, is that that's the motherly.
Yeah. She puts up the lot. It's her
Yeah.
son.
And going to her being the mother of the year, they touched on, how Luke came out at the age of 19 and it was over a text message. And Margie already knew, like most parents do, whether they want to choose to face it or not. But she said nothing changed with those words. And
Exactly.
I think Margie is an incredible woman. And I hope she can set an example for parents out there that, do have a gay child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to like ruin how important it is, I think, that for mothers to come out and be supportive of their sons or daughters, whatever it may be. But, not to detract from that, but do you think it was odd at all that they touched on it at the time they did in this episode? I mean, did you think it came out of nowhere, or did you think it made sense for the storyline?
I get what you're saying because it was just kind of thrusted in there. I feel like that would have been more of a base story to get to know them in the first episode. I feel like that's something you would have put in there. But I think because they were more featured than we saw in the last few episodes and then kind of deal with each other in the detour later on, I think it kind of made sense because it showed that their relationship together, they were able to persevere regardless. And she kind of was patient with Luke.
I think that it was like silver shiny thing. Hey, yeah, mom, I'm gay. Like, came out of nowhere. I think that, they did want to mention it. And I think the fact that they did mention on the show was great for, guys who are too scared to come out of the closet, that if you do, your parents are still, it will be okay. And then also for parents to say that, whether your son's gay or not, you're still going to love him. It's still your child.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great example. But I think where it came out, like, it was just so out of the blue.
Although it's kind of, I feel like the theme of this episode a little bit, where we got tidbits of a lot of people's stories that kind of seemed like, I didn't know that, but also kind of caught me off guard. I just kind of, I guess, picture in the producer's room this huge chalkboard of like 10 facts about each team. And like they feel like whenever there's a 2-second gap in the episode they need to fill, they just cross one off the list. Okay, got that story checked. And like next episode they'll be like 3 more seconds. Let's choose this story we need to cover. Like that's probably not how it works, but in my mind that's how it felt like today.
I thought that like today the two that really stood out to me was the finding out that Luke was gay. And then the other one was when Rachel said that if we win this race,
we'll have babies.
We're gonna have babies.
That's another one I wrote down too.
Okay, at the end of this race.
But if they don't win the race, what? No babies?
No babies.
No babies for you.
Well, I think a lot of it had to go back, and I like how they kind of splice in what happened last time, and you kind of see how their strategies have changed from their prior races. Going into Brenshall's story, too, at the beginning of this, they talked about how last time Brendan said that they focused on just getting to the end, not necessarily winning. But this time they're back and they want to win. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of adapt, especially kind of being at the bottom of the pack.
It doesn't seem to be working very well for them. Whenever they change your strategy, Brenshall.
And another team was John and Jessica, because we saw in their last season that they wanted to run every leg of the race trying to get first. And to me, that's not a really great strategy because you're going to end up failing. Like, they totally were so flustered and focused on getting first and completing challenges that they didn't use their express pass.
Right.
But this time, it's more like, every race or every leg of this race, I feel like, is a mini battle, and it's not the entire war. So you just want to come out on top. Just not the bottom.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Right?
Exactly. So those are some of the teams that kind of was focused on at the beginning. We have Dave and Connor leaving first, Jet and Cord, then Leo and Jamal, Margie and Luke, Flight Time and Big Easy, Caroline and Jennifer, John and Jessica, and then Brendan and Rachel taking up the rear. And it was interesting. We saw the timestamps too. There was about a 3.5 hour difference from Dave and Connor to Brendan and Rachel on this leg.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that We had a lot of people on our YouTube over the last week were complaining about how they thought the last leg was so unfair due to the flights being at a disadvantage. So the 3.5 hour difference was pretty huge. But before we dive into the roadblock and the rest of this episode, we want to give you a little bit of a promo clip on the new reality show starting tomorrow night called Chasing Maria Menounos.
Yes.
It'll be on Oxygen. Check it out.
Tuesdays on Oxygen.
I'm Maria Menounos, and my life can get a little crazy. I host Extra. I'm an actor, producer, dancer, wrestler, and a lot of other things. I live with Kevin, my boyfriend of 15 years. Do you really love me?
I would say that I'm in serious like.
And my parents. Yep, I just said I live with my parents.
You drive me crazy.
You drive me crazy. My parents want us to get married.
You both love each other. Get married.
Kevin and I don't. I am going to get married when I want to get married. I think I want kids. Kevin definitely doesn't want them now.
This is being pushed on to us.
And of course, my parents wanted them yesterday.
This year, you gotta have it.
And I have a house full of people counting on me financially. If I take my eye off the ball, everything can fall apart.
It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or wants us to do. It's what we want to do.
Everyone thinks that they know what's best for me, but I'm really the only one. I have got to figure things out.
Chasing Maria Menounos is so new. Every Tuesday at 10/9 Central, starting March 18, only on Oxygen.
So obviously, if you're a fan of reality television, I know hopefully what you'll be doing tomorrow night, and that's checking out Chasing Maria Menounos on Oxygen tomorrow night.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm so excited. I've literally been counting down the days. I already have it DVR'd. I'm so excited. My night, I scheduled everything around being able to sit
You're ready
down
to
at
go.
9, ready to go. Yeah.
Being the fan of reality TV I am, so I'm
And the fan of
super
Maria.
stoked. Yeah, oh heck yeah, Maria. So let's dive into the roadblock.
Okay.
The challenge was who's got a spring in their step. And this roadblock, a team member must participate in the traditional lansaran dance, which is, you know, incorporating the bamboo springboard, which is very similar to what we call a trampoline. Here in America. So they had to do that with the locals, and then they had to do the rhythm to the music or whatever they were chanting, and then they would have to use the springboard to really launch themselves high enough to retrieve a flag. What did you guys think of this roadblock?
Well, I thought Connor did it, right?
Yes.
Connor, he got it first time,
Yeah.
no problem. I really think that you had to get the rhythm of the trampoline to know when to, like, just like when, if you're on the trampoline and you get like double bounced, you
Or
don't
you're
go,
bouncing a partner on
yeah,
them. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to, you know, get in the motion so you know when to push off to go high. So I think that was the main challenge. And then obviously having good balance. Connor got it the first time. Jet had a little bit of difficulties. I think it took him like 47 times.
Oh yeah, 47 attempts. And I was funny. I think it was cord because I think Jet said it required coordination, and I thought that was like, oh come on, Jet. Yeah.
Oh, for some
I
reason.
guess I'm confused
But you're
all
right
the
team, though.
time.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
so
other cowboy hats on. They have a very similar voice and acting. I get it.
maybe
I
it
was the
should have
same
been
thing.
Jet because Jet probably could have jetted into the air.
They're
Okay,
well
that
done.
was really
You just pulled a
blonde.
Jet with the jokes.
that was
It's
bad.
getting worse and worse. The night's just beginning. You know, here's the thing too, though. I think this is a great example of sometimes it's easy for us to watch and be like, why aren't they getting this? It was fortunate to happen, but it truly showed you how tough this challenge really was when we had Jessica get onto the trampoline.
Oh yeah.
Because after trying for so long, you saw how quickly she was instantly blistering up on her feet. And it just showed you, like, this was, for those of you that didn't get the chance to watch the episode, they're just listening to our recap, this was not a trampoline like we would have here in the United States. This was a bamboo hard trampoline.
Right.
And the Globetrotters said themselves, they're like, it was like cement. Like, you were truly jumping off from a hard surface. I mean, I think this was a more challenging mission than it kind of appeared on
seemed, yeah.
camera. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't understand. Can we talk about Rachel and why she was wearing pantyhose in the race?
Seriously, who wears
you have that on your notes,
pantyhose
too?
I
nowadays?
have why question mark exclamation mark.
Who wears pantyhose?
I put
Come on,
pantyhose in the
girlfriend.
race. WTF?
But she was just,
Why? Yeah.
And what's weird, she made it seem like it was such a brilliant idea to take them off because she first tried to do this on slick bamboo with pantyhose on, and she's like, I think I maybe would do better without the pantyhose on. I'm just sitting there being like, you think?
Yeah.
Like,
You should have just
Jesus,
stuck to the
girl,
green
yes.
sequin shorts. That's what you should have done.
Yeah.
I know she has a huge following out there, but this girl, she literally drives me crazy. I mean, she's funny and she's very entertaining, but there are so many times where I want to like be on the race with her and be like, what are you doing?
her outfits alone. I mean, she has some serious confidence because she is green bling from head to toe with her pantyhose.
Yeah, well, she knew that it would be airing around St. Patrick's Day, so
Yep.
she was just keeping the theme. We'll go with that.
And I
There you
love
go.
this is where the name of the title of this episode was incorporated, because you hear Brendan go, "Play smarter, do it smarter, not harder," and she goes, "I'm trying my smartest." Oh, Rachel.
I mean, I felt bad for her
She's
because the
pretty.
first few times when she went to go launch up, she kind of just fell on her butt. And
Yeah.
I felt bad for her. And then she took off her pantyhose and things got a little bit better.
Yeah, it was certainly entertaining. Oh, Brenchel. Yeah, but Jessica too. Let's talk about those blisters still, because feet are very important, obviously, in
In the
this
race,
race. Like,
yeah.
otherwise, how are you going to run? You're going
Yeah.
to do crutches like Dave last time he was on the show. So I'm going to be curious to know how that might go over to the next episode. But we didn't really see it in the clips either for next
Yeah.
week, so I wonder if it's even an issue anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, this was really interesting, and this was a lot of those where I got really nervous. I also couldn't tell, because if you gave it a certain amount of tries, you had to get off the trampoline for a while. So it's one of those I couldn't tell. Like, they tried 47 times, some of these teams, but then I feel like they also still made it out of the quickly.
Well, if you think about it too, Jet and Cord left at 9:08. So by the time the other teams really got there, they still had about an hour and 20-minute advantage over the other teams that were leaving behind them.
Yeah.
So 47 times though seems exhausting. Like, I probably would have been so frustrated at that point, because my body, like, just physically, I feel like that'd be really taxing. But
And it's this whole leg, I think, really show that this race, yes, it's physical. You have to be, physically strong, but a lot of it is mental. Because if you're doing challenges and you have to do it 47 times until you reach that stupid flag, I mean, that's a lot of mental. You can't give up. You have to, keep your momentum, stay positive, and that's part of the challenge as well.
Well, going with what you just said, that's why you gotta kind of have to hand it to Jessica, because there was a few times where she fell to the ground and feel so defeated, but she never gave up, regardless of her condition with the feet. She got them wrapped, she sucked it up, and did it.
Yeah.
And again, I like John and Jessica, and I think they are still a team to continuously watch as the race progresses. But what did you think about their decision with Margie and Luke choosing Luke to do this roadblock?
For me, I thought maybe Margie thought, he might be a little more athletic and kind of younger, and so he could lift his body up higher. But at the same time, this would have been really difficult for him because he couldn't hear kind of the rhythm of the trampoline. And so, I mean, I understand why I think Luke decided to do it, just because of his age, and maybe his body is a little more capable of jumping up that high.
Right.
But at the same time, he couldn't hear, and a lot of it was just getting the rhythm of the trampoline, and he had a hard time figuring that out.
And I think maybe that's a lot what aided to his success, was the feeling of the motion of the trampoline itself, and him being so tall too. And you saw Big Easy, no problem. And so Luke got in there and did it too, and I think a lot of that had to do with his height.
Yeah, it's funny because I put, but to the surprise me, I have Nate and Luke so good, because I was really surprised. I shot Nate, Big Easy. I'm like, this guy's screwed. And also, tip of the hat to the engineer of this bamboo trampoline, because I mean, like, this is just like some wood, and these big old guys like Big Easy, who can't even do a lot of the challenges because of his size,
so big,
was jumping on this thin wooded trampoline and was just
no problem.
No problem. I said Luke too. It was one of those where I feel like it goes to the power of keeping positive, because they both really struggled at first. I think their first jumps for both of them were pretty pathetic, to be honest with you. But then they, I think their second try each, they both did really, really well.
Right.
So, rock on with them, that sense.
Yes.
Rock on. So before we head on to the detour and the rest of this episode, I feel like it's time we give some shout outs to our loyal fans out there that continuously communicate and have their voice be heard on our YouTube channel. So I want to give a shout out to Average John. He's been following us since we first started doing an after show here. Fantasy Modeling, Mr. Air Sonic, John Tan, Ibahina 22, and then Sansha Sedgehog.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then Jeremy Woods, BB on Twitter. Thank you guys for always, sharing with us your opinions and your thoughts. Yeah. We like to hear what you have to say.
And do you know what is so fun too about, we have some dinging right now
tweets.
with the fans that are watching us right now live on the website. But it's also great because, we're here in Southern California, and I think oftentimes just view I think of our viewers as being, locals and friends. It's neat to get text messages also from people all around the world.
Oh, yeah.
We truly have listeners right now that are, talking to us from Malaysia and Singapore. I'm like, this is amazing. So
The Amazing
huge
Race
thank you.
really does. It's a widespread show
Yeah.
because I don't know if you know, there's a community online that really is aware of when production is in process that will be on the hunt in every country and taking photos from their phones, putting them out there on Twitter and Instagram so everyone can keep track of the teams as they race.
So cool.
I try so hard not to look at them because I don't want too much to be
You
spoiled.
are such a liar.
But
you're
but
the
love,
first one on
I
there
love to
being
see
like
the
where they
photos
are.
live, though. It's
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, I know kind of where they've been, but I don't like to see how it's placed. I don't
Right.
want to read
What's
too
funny,
in
just
depth.
because if you look at these photos that these fans put online of them finding the race being filmed, if you look really closely, it's always James. With his
James
camera
in the
out there, but
background.
I see him. I see him.
I secretly travel everywhere with the production and I spoil
You know when he
everything.
calls in sometimes when the show
Yeah.
he can't make it to the studio? I wonder where he's at. Stalking the Amazing
Yes,
Race.
of course.
So if you like our after show, make sure you continue to rate, comment, and subscribe on iTunes and continue to comment and tweet us because we love your feedback.
Absolutely.
All right, so going forward, after they completed the roadblock, they were given a route marker. They decided to, well, they didn't decide. They were given the opportunity to travel to Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia.
jealous.
But they were told that there's only 3 flights available to get there. So the first flight was an hour and a half ahead of the second, and then the second flight was only 45 minutes ahead of the third. So on flight number 1, David and Connor, the Afghanimals, the Cowboys. Flight number 2, Margie and Luke with the Globetrotters, which I thought was interesting. Well, I'll talk about it in a second, actually. Flight 3, John and Jessica, the Country Singers, and Brenshaw. So flight 1 took off no problem, but flight 2, we have some.
I was still really surprised because it made it seem like the Cowboys were at the trampoline for so long. I thought for sure they weren't going to make that first flight. So it was entertaining to see that that they still made it on that first flight. But it goes to show you when you have that big time frame and how the editing works. It's like, oh, they've missed the first flight. But nope, even all that struggle, they were back up, tied for first. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's because it looks like they could have, Margie and Luke could have easily taken them over because they're only 15 minutes behind Jet and Cord. So
it was close.
It could have been anyone's game at that point. But what was interesting is, of course, flight number 2 had some difficulties being delayed, and it wouldn't be Amazing Race if there wasn't some issues with the flights. And that's when we kind of jump back to season 18, the last time Margie and Luke and the Globetrotters played. And that was called Unfinished Business. And they were eliminated, Margie and Luke, in the 4th leg behind the Globetrotters. So it kind of brought back that. And I like how we talked tonight before we went live that history kind of repeats itself maybe a little bit in this All-Stars.
It seemed very unusual because even the type of challenge, we'll get to it involving liquids and then the flight delays. I'm like, this is the exact same show. Like they just re-aired their season 18 or whatever.
It is. It is funny how it does it.
So then that way, flight 3 really had some time to catch up. They practically got in at the same time at the airport because when we saw them get off their flights, they were kind of sharing taxis.
Right.
Which is, I feel like, the first time in a while we've actually seen that. But it was just interesting to see them kind of couple up and be like, let's just pitch in for this van taxi and go.
Yeah.
Although I think that was the plan, but I found it unusual because they all went to the booth to get a van, and then they were eventually all like, screw it. Like, it seemed really confusing there. And
well,
everyone
Caroline
was like,
and Jennifer definitely took that initiative. They were like, I'm going to get our taxi.
Right. They're like, let's go outside. They say no taxis. Let's go look for ourselves. And once again, my blonde girls worked their flirt, and they got a taxi.
They did.
Oh, I can't wait to hear some of your opinions about these guys.
Well, you know what?
We'll get to it later, I'm sure.
Well, I'll say it right now because what made me a little bit more open to them is that they really didn't use their flirt, is what I saw. I just saw them go, please, like they were like begging, but it wasn't as prominent as we've seen in past episodes.
Yeah.
So it was really like they just were like, we're gonna do our own thing. They took their own like initiative to get their own taxi, and they just did it and left. So for them, especially on the roadblock, they did it themselves. No one really had to help them. I was like waiting for them to ask one of the tribes people to like lift them in the air because I was just waiting for them to ask them for someone else's help. But
I don't know, but I'm like wiping a tear right now. And Marissa, producer, can we like timestamp this when James finally has come to the light?
Hey, I'm not
and
fully in
said
the light.
How great these girls! They're playing a strong
I don't know if I said great
race.
or strong.
We heard it here. James Wallington likes these girls.
I never said
yes.
like.
No, he did.
I
He did.
think that people refer to their flirt as just being very personable and confident and approaching people and asking for help or begging, and guys or some of these girls who think that maybe they're too good for that, they don't do that. But that's not really flirting. It's just asking for help or being talking to someone with a smile on their face.
Right.
It's not necessarily flirting. It's just having, great social skills and being very personable.
And good looks, which they even admitted that they relied on, so.
And they are so cute. I mean, sweaty or not, they're adorable. I have a girl crush on both of them.
Although no one gets their sweat on like the Globetrotters. Holy
Oh,
moly.
yeah.
It's as they're waiting for a flight, they are drenched. They're walking to a cab drenched. Like, these guys, how much water they must have to drink in a day.
Seriously.
Anyway, we're getting beside ourselves. So yeah, they all race with these vans. We see teams starting to pair up, race strong. But eventually all have to get to downtown Kuala Lumpur so they can get to the detour, right?
I was just going to say that at that moment when they were all, trying to find taxis, that would have been great marketing for Uber or Lyft.
Right? Screw the cabs. Get my Uber.
They should have
Get
had like
my
a code
Uber.
pop up on the screen, like if you need to get somewhere fast,
Yeah.
type in this. Oh! I got a little anxious with that one.
Well,
I spilled. I'm sorry.
Yes, if those of you that are watching right now on YouTube, James has just spilled water all over it was the earthquake.
Is it water,
And
though?
blame it
Marissa
on
even
an
said
earthquake.
before the show to wash my hands because I like to talk with my hands and it's usually in their camera space. Sorry about that, Marissa. So,
We'll just ignore
maybe
it
I'll
like
just
it's
put
there.
my notes. I'm just kidding. So, yeah. So, but back to the country singers real fast. If I saw more of them just taking an initiative like they did this episode on themselves, then maybe I'll warm up to them a little bit more as the season progresses. Because that's what I want to see is a team just doing it on themselves.
Yeah.
It's all stars.
right.
Can't wait to hear the Twitter following you're going to have from this, James, because you already had people commenting about how they're nervous that you're going to become fans of these girls. We'll see what your fans think, James. Follow James on Twitter to find out.
I don't know if
what
I'll be
everyone thinks.
fans, diehards, but we'll see.
You do.
So, teams continue to the intersection, which is by the base of the towers, and they got the detour clue for mix master or master mix. And the mix master teams were trained on how to scratch on a DJ table, and then they had to perform in front of the DJ and the crowd after I don't remember what I wrote, but a series of 7 record scratches. And then in the master mix, they had to stack 7 cocktail glasses in a pyramid, and then use a stack of mixing glasses to pour different colorful cocktails without mixing them together.
Which looked... Okay, so if you had just read the clues, which one would you have picked?
I think I would have done the mix master, the music.
The music.
Yeah.
What about you?
I also done the mix master because I used to work on a cruise ship, and the bartenders on the cruise ship I worked on were known for doing this pyramid with the thing.
Oh, really?
Yes. So we saw it on a nightly basis. However, we also sent these bartenders to like this high-level bar school training, and it took them a long time to master that pour. So the fact that they expected these guys to do it in one evening and one challenge, I would have immediately, thank God, had that experience beforehand and been like, hell no, run. It is hard. Really, really hard. No, I would have done the mix master for sure.
Yeah, those who are daring enough to take on the master mix was Dave and Connor, Jet and Cord, the Afghanimals, well, for a
Kind
second,
of.
Brenchel, and Margie and Luke. But, and I've always said in past seasons, to switch up your momentum, especially at a detour, can be lethal to your leg of the race. But because they were kind of in the same proximity, I think the Afghanimals made the wise decision in jumping on over to Mix Master to join John and Jessica, the Globetrotters, and the Country Singers.
Well, what I thought was interesting is when the second batch of people who arrived, it seemed like a lot of them wanted to do the master mix and do the drinks. But then once they got there, Connor and Dave especially said, we've been here for 2 hours. This is hard. And I think that a lot of them changed their minds.
Yeah, I was surprised that they were so candid about the level of difficulty. But also, this, it really harked back to last season with the Afghanimals. This was not a surprise because their entire season last season, when we talked to Jamie and A here in the studio, they were saying that they were always laughing at the Afghanimals because they never seemed to stick with just one challenge. They were always jumping around. So they clearly have not changed up too much of their strategy from last season. But it worked out this time. They're lucky.
And I loved how they went into the Mix Master so confident. Oh man, I'm a bartender all the time. Like, this will be a piece of cake. And then not so much.
They're like, it's time to switch detours.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny, the Afghanimals' reaction when John and Jessica and the Globetrotters and the Country Singers walked in. They were kind of like, oh, shoot.
Oh, we're not so lucky.
Don't have a big lead anymore.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people had struggles with the master mix, especially Margie and Luke. It looks like Luke had a little tantrum. He went back to his old ways, as we've seen on the last 2 seasons he was on. He definitely has a temper.
How old is Luke?
I think he's about 26, maybe?
Here's the thing, though. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, and I don't mean to sound like a complete jerk, but I feel like they've done flashbacks to his previous seasons. This kid seems to always throw these temper tantrums,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, dude, you're on a race that's for $1 million, but like you're also just a grown adult. Like you can't just throw these tantrums, even if for not raising for $1 million. If you're at a bar, like, breathe.
Well, especially when he threw the glasses on the floor.
Totally
Who does
unacceptable.
that?
I know.
Yeah.
And,
Like I said,
but again, going back to the relationship as a mother-son, that's when Marcia was like, unacceptable, clean
Yeah.
that up.
I'm so
then
impressed.
I
and kept her
also-
cool.
Yeah, and I also thought at that exact moment, I don't really know much about Luke. I don't know where he lives or anything, but I also think that maybe Margie kind of babies him a little bit and is just always there to, like, she was saying, no, you need to stop and pick this up yourself. And
Yeah.
that was great. That was, great mother skills.
Yeah.
But it seems that if Luke doesn't want to do something, she's always there to do it. It's like maybe she's just a little too motherly.
But maybe that's because it's a race and she knows her son so well that he's stubborn, he has the temper, that she's like, if
Yeah.
we're going to get anywhere
I gotta
into
do it.
this race, I'm just
I'm
going to
gonna
have
do
to
it.
suck
I'll
it
talk
up
to him
and
later
do
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. We'll reevaluate our situation after the race is over. But another thing I thought was funny with Luke is that clearly at one point when they were pouring it, it was just messy, it was sloppy, obviously mixed, and he was begging the guys
Yes.
for
I know,
the clue. And I'm like, I'm not even there, and I can see that it was completely done wrong.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not like the bartender's gonna be like, "Oh, because you pouted, here you
Here,
go."
yeah.
Like fans of the show would have rioted. Like there's just
Right.
no possible way the show producers would ever allow it and be like, "You
No.
know what? A for effort. Here's the clue.
Yeah,
Like
here you go,
Keep
okay.
going, buddy. Keep trying." I think this is the one time when they saw how long it was taking, especially with how vocal the David and Connor were being.
Yeah.
I feel like the other teams maybe should have done the Afghanimal style and just took the risk
Switched.
and switched. Especially
yeah.
because you could see the DJ
Yeah.
booth from the Sky Bar.
And how quick people are going
You could
through it.
see when Leo and Jamal switched, the other teams that were doing the Mix Master, they were doing the Master Mix. They could see the people doing the Mix Master, how they were getting out pretty quick. I'd have been
Yeah.
like, screw this, I'm changing.
We're going, yeah.
Yep, I completely agree with you.
I also loved how many times they mentioned that Dave and Connor were Mormon boys. I mean, they've never mentioned that before. And it's like, okay, are you just trying to say that these Mormon boys have never... Wasn't it just cranberry juice and orange juice?
And no one is doubting them because they're Mormons
I
from
know.
Utah. It's like, why are you putting that soundbite in there to begin with?
Yeah.
That is producers feeding them this line to remind us that they're Mormon and from Utah.
Or do it once, but the fact that we heard it 2 or 3
Yeah.
times.
in the same episode.
You're
It's
like, okay,
come
we get it.
on.
You were asked to be in a bar. No, and I'm sure they were all just there for the show
Right.
anyway. So I
Yeah.
doubt anyone was like getting hammered.
Well,
Although
that
after
kind of
this
goes
challenge,
back
I'd
to,
wanna be.
like, I feel like with Dave and Connor in a lot of their interviews, I'm not bashing them because I'm a huge Dave and Connor fan,
Yeah.
especially on their last season. But I just feel like every interview they're in, they don't really have much personality. If you think about it, compared to everybody else, they kind of just sit there and they just kind of describe what happened
Yeah.
with like a monotone voice. And they kind of look dead behind the eyes when they're talking. So I feel like producers are kind of telling them what to say to maybe kind of make the story
Yeah.
kind of evolve.
Yeah.
Because when they talk about the Mormon thing so much, it's kind of like, okay. And then we know that you hurt your Achilles tendon on the last race. We don't need to keep hearing about it. Congratulations,
Yeah.
you've overcome that and now continue forward.
And that's one thing, is the things that they do tell in their interviews, it's not really things that we want to know. I want to know about how they got through their cancer. They're
Yep.
both cancer survivors. I want to know about, how the dad helped the son, or how the son was always there to support his dad. I want to know more about that, not about his Achilles. We all watched that race. We all
know what
we all
happens.
know. We don't want to know that you're Mormon. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and I agree. I feel like when All-Star seasons happen, they kind of lose sight in the story editing of the stories of these teams that, especially the three-peats that we've fallen in love with before. There's obviously more story that can develop out of those people. That's why they're back.
Right.
Yeah.
But especially with Dave and Connor, they were so short-lived on their first season that we really didn't get to understand the capacity of their cancer and what it did for their relationship. And they're losing sight of that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it later on in the race, which I'm hoping
Me
for.
too.
But as of right now, it's like the Achilles, you're overkilling it. great. Congratulations. You're not racing on crutches this time around. And you're Mormon boys from Utah. So I want to hear the real story about your relationship that we kind of missed out on.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, some people that did not lose sight at all of like the mission at hand and like what the hell they were doing there was these guys are unstoppable from Accords, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
like, I don't think you guys have ever bartended in their life. They've never done this bamboo trampoline, and like when they have a challenge and they get held up and they get like in second or third, like they seem to like bounce back. Their attitude's positive. They did this, and I made notes. They did it in I think like 12 tries or something. Like they did really well. Like they did it pretty quickly. I was impressed. I mean, they didn't
Jet
give
and Cord
up.
do well.
They always just kill these challenges.
They do. But who wasn't really killing it this time, and they made a big deal about how she was a cocktail waitress in Vegas, was Brenchel.
I know.
And you got to hand it to them for not giving up, but I also think it was a little stubborn to not switch detours. You had the option. And you're sitting there like, we're not quitters, but switching detours is not quitting. That's just making a better decision.
Right.
But I have to hand it to them. I think it was really great sportsmanship on Rachel's behalf for being able to sit there and comfort Margie and Luke. They're obviously neck and neck for last place, and that didn't stop Rachel from lending out a helping hand to really encourage Luke to do his best.
Can I ask you, what would you guys have done? Because for those of you that didn't see the episode, what happened was there was down to just 2 teams, or it appeared to be that way. You never know what happens when you're, going to the pit stop. But it looked like there were just 2 teams left, Margie and Luke, and then Brenchel. And Margie and Luke, I thought, had a pretty smart idea, where they would just give up on the challenge and take the time penalty.
Yeah.
But they asked if they wanted to do it, all 4 of them, together. And I feel like, even if you thought you could beat Margie and Luke, that would at least take the risk out of it.
Yeah.
I think I would have said, you know what, we're both struggling with this, let's do it. Like, I was surprised that they decided not. I think I would have said, okay, I'll do the time penalty. What about you guys? Am I alone on this?
I think because you don't know if it's a non-elimination, and if you know you're the bottom 2 teams, it's obviously going to be a foot race to that mat. And whoever comes in first, their time penalty starts before the last team, so you're still sealing your fate. It's obviously a foot race to that mat.
Yeah.
So that to me would be a little bit too risky. So I think it was smart that they kind of played it out, like Rachel said. Let's just play it out.
I just felt so bad because it clearly was the point where Margie and Luke were falling apart.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't think there was going to be any end in sight. But I feel like Brenchel, they were still kind of keeping their positive, and it was Brenchel that was comforting Margie and Luke, but then who miraculously pulls it off? This good old sweet Margie. I think it was Margie.
Yeah,
Oh, Margie.
Margie.
Yeah.
I think Margie pulled off. No way was Luke going to do this. He was
But you're right,
an
it was
utter mess.
It was Margie.
No, and I thought that truly showed Rachel's true colors, is when she really comforted Luke. And I kind of feel when Brendan is kind of having his emotions take over, Rachel's there to comfort him. And when Rachel's crying, because she cries a lot, Brendan's there to kind of comfort her. So I think they balanced each other out really well. So Rachel kind of kept them going, kept them focused. They did end up being the last people to leave this challenge, but
It was intense.
it was intense. But we have to talk about the DJ. I loved the DJ.
Lord.
I love how every time someone did it wrong, they would all go boo, and they would like shake their hands in the air. Like, yeah, the DJ was great. I wonder if this really helped his business at all.
Leo
Skylar.
and Jamal, they were super focused. They were getting to the beat. I love them.
I thought they seemed so awkward. And then once they did finally finish it, they were acting like they were the biggest badass DJs in the world. And I was like, boys, you guys got no rhythm, but now you feel pretty good about yourselves.
In their interview, they were like, yeah, Leo and Jamal in the house.
Yeah.
Like being all like gangster.
Oh,
We'll have to give them some crap when we see them next.
That's true.
But
so going on to the pit stop.
Yeah.
The pit stop, we had Jet and Cord in first, Dave and Connor in second, the Afghanimals in third. And again, those 3 teams were the top 3 last leg. They're the top 3 this leg. So it'll be interesting to see if they can all keep their placements as the legs progress. Caroline and Jennifer getting fourth. And again, they took initiative for themselves. So it'll be interesting to see how they do as the race progresses. John and Jessica, 5th place. Again, they went from being towards the bottom and going up 2 placements.
Yeah.
So I think, again, they're slowly making their way forward in this race. And I think they're a team to watch out for. Margie and Luke. Flight Time and Big Easy get 6th. And then Margie and Luke, because, of the troubles at the detour, they got 7th. And then Brenchel getting 8th.
Right.
And again, no surprise that it was a non-elimination because you can't afford to get rid of Brenchel this early in the race.
That
I'm sorry.
was so obvious.
Yeah.
It was so obvious. But I had just to go back. So when they were deciding the challenges, Margie and Luke had no choice once again because he could have not done the DJ.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
You know, that team definitely has a lot more challenges than people recognize.
That's a good point.
Because
I never thought of it.
Yeah.
They could not have done the other one. And even with the trampoline part, like if you cover your ears, and you don't get to hear that rhythm.
No.
So
That's a really good point to bring up.
They couldn't have switched.
A detour
they had
gives you two opportunities that they were kind of pigeonholed to do just one.
Yeah.
So
and that's
it'll be
why,
interesting.
like, okay, so if Rachel and Brendan did switch and they got through the DJ, well, Margie and Luke had no choice to even switch.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, McCord's get a trip to London out of the deal, so that's not too bad. And I'm interested to see. We were pretty accurate. I'm pretty excited.
On our predictions last week?
On our predictions last
First
week.
time in like a while.
Thank God. I'm starting to feel like the worst expert.
So let's dive into
quote-unquote.
predictions again really quick before we wrap.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right. What do you think, Justin?
All right, so I'm going to do this as fast as I can. One, I know you guys just mentioned that you think that John and Jess are slowly making their way forward. They are. However, I still do not have a lot of faith in John and Jess. I don't. I don't think they're getting a lot of airtime. I don't view them as strong players. I feel them just kind of as like, meh. So I think that next week, Brenchel will go. I don't think they can overcome the speed bump. They've not been playing well all season. I think they're going. But I don't think you're going to see John and Jess continually move up. I think you're going to stay right where they're at, or they're going to go back down. By the prediction, and I think that also Margie and Luke will continue to struggle with their communication. Lastly, do you think it's weird? I have a lot of predictions and questions. Do you think it's weird that for as far as David and Connor, they keep mentioning this Achilles, this injury?
Yeah.
Do you think I wonder
It's
if
foreshadowing, maybe?
Yeah, do you think it's possible he might hurt himself again? Only because I'm like, every single episode, they flash back to his injury and how devastating it was. I'm like, are they setting us up for another big blow? Otherwise, you think they'd mention it once, we all know he hurt himself, move on, but they keep bringing it up. Maybe I'm looking too far into it, but I'm interested to see in the next episode or two if he has some kind of ailment again. We'll see.
That's a good point. Jessica?
I agree with you. I think Brenchel, they're out. I don't think they're going to survive the speed bump. And I just think, they've been in the bottom now for a while. So I think they're going to go. I really hope Margie and Luke stay in. I still think right now some of the strongest teams are Leo and Jamal. I absolutely love them. And Dave and Connor. I think Dave and Connor are going to stay in. I didn't even think about the Achilles or injury thing, but they have mentioned it a lot. So, and then my girls better stay in. My country girls.
I think you have like 3 more episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Enjoy it now.
3 more episodes. I think for me, I agree. I think we're going to say goodbye to Brenchel next week, especially if you know you have a speed bump. Why are you going to take a flight that has a 30-minute connection? That's just stupid. So they play that up in the preview for next week, and I think they're going to miss their flight, and they're going to miss most of the leg in general for next week. So goodbye, Brenchel. I think we're going to see Afghanimals and Jet and Cord and Dave and Connor continuing to do well. That's a really good point for editing, though. I wonder why they keep showing that.
Yeah.
But again, I wonder if it's because, to me, they seem like the most rootable team at this point that's getting the most rootable edit because they keep showing what they've overcome from their last season.
Yeah.
Probably it.
So that could be maybe because we're going to see them go very far in the race. And I think Jessica and John, I don't think you should count them out quite yet. I think that they don't have a lot of story right now because there's bigger personalities that are still in it, and we're going to see them kind of develop a little bit more as the race goes on.
So the question is, are we going to see more pantyhose or not?
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think, of course. Keep tweeting us, send us comments on YouTube, and keep rating. Another 4.5 week for us. Thank you guys for your great rating.
All right, Justin, where can they find you on social media?
You guys can find me at Justin J. Nichols. That works for most of the social media things out there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so on.
Awesome.
And you can find me at DressJessXO. And James?
You can find me on Twitter at James Wallington and on Instagram at Mr. James Wally.
And we hope you had a great St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next
and
week.
hopefully we'll have Jason and Amy in the studio soon. We'll talk more about that next week.
And make sure to watch Chasing Maria.
Yes.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.